gang. Today is Wednesday, May 20th. I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. We are halfway there through this final 5-day week of distance learning, and our country of the day today is Croatia. Might be a country that some of you have never heard about before, so let's drop some knowledge on it. Croatia, it is across the Adriatic Sea from Italy. So Italy, the boot-looking country. If you look to the west, or I'm sorry, to the east, to the right-hand side of Italy, you will see Croatia. Absolutely gorgeous coastal country. The modern necktie, like what I'm wearing right here, is allegedly from Croatia. It descends from something known as a cravat, which was like a little scarf. And then later, Croatian soldiers would wear the necktie. So, who knew? Look at that. Also, Dalmatian, the dog, like 101 Cruella de Vil, are alleged to have been bred along the Dalmatian coast of Croatia. So there you go. Also, Croatia. I mentioned yesterday that I got to spend some time living in Prague while I did my student teaching. I also got a chance to visit Croatia. My trip started in Serbia, where I was visiting a foreign exchange student friend. She and we had worked together, and so when I had finally come to Europe to do my student teaching, I stayed with her family. It was absolutely incredible. It was a small town in Serbia. It was amazing. It was wild. It was fun, and it was just kind of a really neat experience to get that firsthand encounter. And her family, this was super crazy. Her family, before they sent me off on my next trip to Croatia, her mom, when we were out one afternoon, did my laundry, which that was super nice, right? I appreciated that. I was traveling out of a backpack and I came back and her mom had done my laundry. And she had also ironed my clothes, like all of my clothes, like my t-shirts, my socks, and yes, even my undergarments. I had never had ironed undergarments before, and haven't since. But it was nice for a while to have some ironed undergarments. But anyway, so I hopped on the train with my freshly ironed undergarments. It was an overnight train taking me down into Croatia, into the capital Zagreb, and then eventually down to Dubrovnik. More on that in a second. And we got to the border crossing. And at the border crossing, they had to check passports because we weren't crossing in the EU zone. More on that later, maybe not. But they had to check passports. And so I'm awoken at like 2 a.m. with these burly dudes, two of them, both of them carrying some sort of weapon, a large weapon, because it was a border crossing. And they were knocking on my little train car and they opened it up. And I knew it was a passport crossing, so I wasn't totally frightened. And so I'm rummaging through my things. I pull out my passport, I hand it to them, and it's kind of all blurry-eyed. And they look at my passport. Look at me. Look at my passport. Look at me. Passport me. And now I'm starting to get nervous because normally these things are a quick whoop, whoop, stamp, and on your way. And they were talking to one another. I'm going, oh gosh, now what is happening? What have I done? And they had very broken English, as in they didn't speak very clear English. And they said, Minnesota, in a very thick Croatian accent, which I cannot do. And I just kind of nodded. And they said, basketball. And I shrugged and nodded. And then they said, big ticket, KG. And I was like, oh yeah, Kevin Garnett, the big ticket. And so I smiled and gave them the thumbs up, and then they gave me a high five, and then I went back to bed. But for a moment, I thought I was going to be booted off a train and stuck at a border crossing, but I wasn't. Eventually, I made it down to Dubrovnik, which is this small coastal town. By the way, this is Storytime with Canton. It's this super small coastal town. I rented like this little room from this Croatian family. It was really nice, and they recommended that I rent a scooter. So I did. I rented a little moped, and they told me, just tour around, and I did. And I was just, there was me on my little moped with my little helmet and everything, and I was just tooling around this little coastal town, having fun, just kind of winding my way through, until, as I was winding my way up these hills, I realized that I was on a one-way street. And I realized that this one-way street was in fact an on-ramp, aka an entrance ramp, aka an entrance ramp onto like a highway. A very narrow, like 2-lane highway in which cars were whipping by at like 60 miles an hour and tour buses were whipping by at like 60 miles an hour. And so I had to, me and my freshly ironed undergarments and all, had to basically try and barrel down this little highway on a moped as like buses were flying by in either direction. I was like just kind of on the side of the road, praying to all that is good in this world that I would make it down to the bottom. And it was just like, dun, 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 dun. I made it, and it was definitely a very memorable experience, very harrowing experience. And this is why you travel, right? You get to meet people at border crossings, you get freshly pressed undergarments, you get to ride scooters down a highway where you shouldn't be riding them. These are all the great things that happen when you go out and explore the world and travel. I also had a chance to eat octopus and squid sitting right on the coast. I think I got the picture up there for you. And if you look down in that little like nook, right in the little bay there's a little seafood restaurant. And that's where I ate octopus and squid for the first time. And it was good. Yeah, I would do it again. Definitely would do it again. Would recommend. Anyway, that's enough of story time with Canton this morning. The point of all of this is traveling, and I hope you saw this with Rick yesterday. Traveling can be an amazing experience, especially when you really get out and see things and you just get out and do things and you immerse yourself with the culture, whether it's staying with people, like renting a room from a family or something like that, or you just go out on your own. It can be an incredible experience. And hopefully you saw that with Rick yesterday as you traveled throughout Europe with Rick. That's what you're going to be doing today and through the rest of this week and early into next week, just a little bit. You're going to be traveling with Rick. Basically what you're going to do today, you're going to pick a country in Europe. Maybe even a city. A city might even be better than an entire country within Europe. Pick one that's new, that's different, that you want to learn a little bit more about, and you're going to start planning your European vacation there. That's right, gang. You have been gifted a European vacation courtesy of me and your global studies teachers and courtesy of the global studies department. We're sending you all to Europe, but you got to plan the trip. So before you can go to Europe, you got to plan the trip. Flights are cheap right now. Bad joke, sorry. But at any rate, so pick a location and then today start working on it. This is a multi-day activity similar to our levels project that we did last week. So everything will be down in the assignment Dropbox. That's where you'll find just kind of the day-by-day breakdown. There is a set of slides that explains in more detail the directions and the expectations. Read those first. There's also some examples. Those examples are based on Buenos Aires, Argentina. So we're not in Latin America, we're in Europe, but it should give you an idea of kind of the quality and the expectation of work that we're looking for here. Review all of that first before starting. I also put together a little screencast of me just talking through those directions and explaining them. So if you're not the reading type and you're more the sit and listen type, you can watch that screencast as well. Like I said, it's a multi-day activity. We gave you this the suggested pacing, but knowing that you know your schedule better than I know your schedule, feel free to kind of wiggle around that. The idea though is that it should be done by Friday. You got 3 days to plan this trip. You should have it be done by Friday. Don't turn it in yet. We're doing something with it next week before you turn it in. But I know I went a little long today. The point of me going a little long was to explain to you just a little bit about stories and why it's important to travel and all that good stuff, and really just kind of set the stage, because you are now going to channel your inner Rick as you plan your European vacation. You're going to pick the sites, you're going to pick the activities, you're going to explain the cultural significance, you're going to explain the why, all of that good stuff. So at any rate, that's all I've got for today. I hope that you are doing well. If there's anything that I can do, please let me know. Don't hesitate to reach out. Remember to be bold, be kind, and make good choices. See you.